Okay guys, welcome back. Got another long one today, another nightmare of a story. It's about a guy sharing his experience married to an Indonesian woman this time. The person that submitted it to me, English is not his first language, so I've tried to edit bits that didn't really make sense, but I've tried to keep it all as he sent it me, so it's still his story. But yeah, let's jump into it. I stumbled upon your channel and was entertained by stories from your followers. And after watching the nightmare marriage story, I would like to share my experience. After a few failed relationships with Polish women, I thought I could try to have a relationship with an Asian girl. I created an account on Dating Asia and talked to a few women, narrowed it down to one, an Indonesian girl who I found attractive, and she seemed serious with me. She was telling me her story, which later in my story you will realise was totally just in her mind. She said that she is very broken-hearted after her ex, an Italian boyfriend, played with her feelings. He swore to her that he will take her to Italy and they will get married there. In her story, this Italian was her first boyfriend and biggest love of her life. They were together for a long time, over a year, but he had to go back to his country. After a few weeks of online chatting, he stopped contacting her totally. I was eager to take her because I feel like I would like to heal her broken heart. I would not like to lose time, so I immediately booked a ticket to Indonesia to take the relationship to another level. As a first timer in Asia, I did not have any expectations, though she had a few requests before I came to her. She asked me to buy 3 babyless hair curlers for her and her 2 friends, as you cannot buy this in Asia at the time. It was not a big deal and I would like to make her happy, so I purchased them for her. I stayed in a hotel because she was just living in a dormitory with other girls and they wasn't allowed to take anyone back there. She showed me around Jakarta. We went to some nice restaurants, amusement parks, and soon she moved into my hotel pretty much straight away because we like to spend time together. On one of the days, we flew to Sumatra where her mother was living and who she hadn't seen for the last few years. Even though this was just a 30-minute flight, it felt strange, but I believe at the time she couldn't afford it. We stayed at her mother's house in a small village in Bandar Lampung, surrounded by her family. It was all nice and I was happy. Then, one day she told me that I should buy her a diamond ring to show her that I was serious. I thought that it should not be expensive because in Europe you can buy a ring for 2,000 euros, so I would expect something cheaper knowing I would buy it from Asia. We went to a fancy jewellery shop in a mall, and to my surprise, a ring that looks around 3,000 euros is actually worth around 25,000 euros. I refused to buy this because, first, I will never buy such expensive gift, and second, I didn't have that type of money anyway. She looked unhappy and disappointed when I told her that I could not buy it. Even told me that I am not serious to her because I do not like to buy her that ring. But I thought I would be able to talk her through it. But a few days had passed and she did not forget about it. She told me that it was tradition in her country, especially since she was half Chinese, I must buy her jewellery like a dowry. We finally settled to buying a golden necklace which she never liked to wear and later gave it to her mother. Fast forward, I brought her to Poland and we ended up getting married. It was all good and I thought I found someone whom I can stay with for the rest of my life. My mother and daughter were living with me, so I thought she would be fine living with me and they all get along. But in time, there became so many issues between the women. It was a stressful time for me, trying my best to grant everyone's wishes so they can live happily under one roof. It didn't work and it seemed she had enough of the situation and headed back to Indonesia while I was out of the house and did not even know she was leaving. She had made friends with my neighbour and told horrible stories to them, so they gave her money to buy her a ticket back to Indonesia without giving me any warning. I was scared that something had happened to her because she just left the house and turned her phone off. I knew she didn't have any money, and it did not cross my mind that she would head back to Indonesia without telling me first. My mother called me just after she had left from our house, and all of us was wondering what was wrong. After a few days, she finally messaged me and said that she is in Indonesia and that it's all my fault that she left, but said I still have a chance to fix it. I just need to prove to her that I understand how she felt and we move out of Poland so I will have no contact with my mother. I flew to Indonesia yet again and asked her to come back with me. She agreed to try again, and this would be the start of the horror story. She convinced me to move to Germany for a better life, and at that time I thought it was a good idea, as I knew another person there who offered me a job. So I moved there with her, and things was going great considering we had a rocky start, but it was all good and she was pregnant with our son. My daughter visited us and I asked if she would like to live with us. My daughter agreed, but my Indonesian wife did everything to make my daughter's life miserable. One time they fought over a pot noodle, which my wife brought from the market, but my daughter ate it because she was hungry. It seems like a small thing, but for my wife, she did not give in. She just could not let go of that noodle. I even told her that I would buy her more of the same the next morning because the grocery store was already closed. She wasn't having any of this, and it came to a point where she even called the police for this. My daughter gave up and went back to Poland to live with my mother, and to be honest, I cannot blame her for this decision. From then on, my daughter became bitter with me and understandably would distance herself from me. My wife started using her pregnancy to take advantage of me to get everything she wants. After she gave birth, she asked me to bring her mother to Germany. I agreed, as I knew it would help us to get by helping out with our new baby. But it was like she just gave her mother the role that she was meant to take. Once her mother was around, my wife had more time on her phone and just roaming around. A lot of the times, I did not see her when I came back from work, and she would leave our son with her mother. It became chaotic also between them, always fighting over something, no matter how big or small the issue was. We have a small apartment, so just a few steps and we are on the other side. We was never far from each other. Then, her mother started to act very weird. One time, when I went to the kitchen to grab a drink, she approached me and started to touch me and trying to kiss me on the lips, knowing that 3 meters from the kitchen, her daughter is feeding our son. Luckily, it wasn't easy for her. Because of the big height difference, she couldn't actually reach my lips. I was shocked and didn't know what to do. If I push her, then she maybe say that I beat her, or shout, but then she would deny everything. I just stepped back, refused, and immediately walked back to my room. A short time after, my wife went to the toilet, then her mother come beside me. But that time she wasn't trying anything, she just showed me her phone. She doesn't speak English, so for communication with me, she uses Google Translate. On the screen was a wrote out translation which said, "Don't tell anything to Juliana, but I love you so much." This shocked me even more. I can't actually believe this is happening. Honestly, I didn't know what to do at the time. I went to work and thought about it while I was out of the situation, clearing my mind. I decided that I was going to tell my wife what had happened once I got home from work, because I didn't see any other way. I was hoping that it will help and they can discuss this weird situation, but my wife's reaction was totally opposite from what I expected. Juliana said that I am crazy and how can I say that BS about her beloved mother? The next day, Juliana asked me to bring something from the basement. I was already late for work, so I said that they can manage as I have to go. She started to get angry that I wouldn't just grab something that would only take me a minute. So I agreed to run and take it. Just after a few steps on the stairs, I can hear her mother running behind, which made me wonder why must I fetch it if she can do it. When I was opening the doors, she started to touch me again and literally jumped on me with her kisses. I got angry, confused, and again didn't know how to deal with it. I get the blanket that they asked me to get, run back up the stairs and throw it in anger, saying, "Why did I have to fetch it when your mother could easily have gotten it?" Just after that, I ran downstairs because my work colleagues were already waiting for me in the car. On the way to work, I started to talk about it with the guys and they couldn't believe what I was saying. The more I tell them about my situation, the more crazy I look to them. After I get back home from work, I know there is no way to solve this if I did not make it all clear. I tell my wife what is happening again and mention that the evidence of it is on her mother's phone on the Google Translate history. I tell her that she must believe me and solve it with her mother because this situation is something I don't like to experience. I was even scared to go into the kitchen because I did not know what to expect. The next day, when I got back from work, I was sure they already discussed it, but again, I was wrong. Juliana was yelling at me that I lied and there was no evidence on her mother's WhatsApp history, even though I did not mention WhatsApp. This was already getting too much. I grabbed her mother's phone and asked her to unlock the screen. In front of them, I opened Google Translate history and shown all what was there. This changed the situation right away and they started to talk to each other. I left because I understood nothing as they was not speaking English and I wanted them to have the privacy. When I got back after an hour or two, they was crying together on the sofa. But next morning, all back to normal. Well, it seemed normal to me at the time. Her mother became a little bit too normal, and I could sense something is going on or is about to happen. So I was very cautious and observing their every move. One time, I came to the kitchen and her mother was using the bowl that we used to cook as a toilet, just lying it on the kitchen floor. I called Juliana immediately and asked, "What is this again?" So they talk again, calmly, but I understood nothing from this. And after a few minutes, Juliana tells me that her mother is very sorry, but she couldn't hold her pee for too long, so she had no choice and she did it in the bowl except put it on the kitchen floor. Sounds reasonable, I guess, because her mum was old, but not too old. Seemed very weird for me, so I continued to be cautious even more. The next morning, I get up to go to work. My breakfast is always prepared and normally I would just grab it all and stick it into my backpack. But not that day. Too many weird things just happened in the last few days. So I opened my mug to sniff my hot tea. Immediately I realise that there is something, but can't understand what it smells like. After a few attempts to recognise what it is, yes, it was pee. That was too much. I called Juliana to drink it. Surely she refused it without even trying to smell. So I asked the kitchen chef who prepared this fragrance for my breakfast. She was just repeating sorry 100 times and Juliana translated to me that her mother went to the toilet and forgot to wash her hands properly. But it was just nonsense, because the smell was so strong, it meant she had done it intentionally. After that, I say that enough is enough, and when I am back home from work, her mother can't be here and having access to our kitchen. Turns out that she actually listened to me, because once I got back from work, her mother wasn't there anymore, just living in the upstairs apartment. But this situation didn't last long. Her mother would start coming to us and starting fights, saying that she must live with us at the same apartment. To cut this part of the story short, my wife sent her mother back to Indonesia as we couldn't live with her anymore. Now, to the next part of the story. A few years passed and she started showing even more of her evil side. She could always find things to blame me over. I did not have any peace. One day, I came back from work really tired and just wanted to rest and sleep, but she had other plans. She opened all the windows and the balcony door so it became freezing inside and impossible for me to sleep. She would always do crazy stuff and play mind games just to get my attention. Another time, she threatened me that she would call the police and report me that I was trying to kill her. It became that bad that I was clueless what she would do next. Then, another time out of the blue, she took some scissors and started attacking me with them. I was stronger than her, so I was able to prevent it, but in the process, both of us got some wounds from the altercation, especially her hands and fingers when I would be trying to pull the scissors out of her hands. She was happy to get those wounds because she will have some evidence if she called the police. And she did end up calling the police, but I threw the scissors outside through the window so the police did not find them inside the house. The complaint was eventually dropped by them. From then on, we had police visits almost every day because of her. She was becoming more unhappy every day, as was I. I also thought that she is constantly looking for a new boyfriend, as she is always on her phone. One time, she said she wants to stay with a friend, but when asked which friend and where, she would not tell me. I already had a feeling that she would like to go and meet another guy. The worst part is that she wanted to take our son. I tried my best to stop her from going, which led to her calling the police again. The police came and they said I could not prevent her from doing what she likes. I strongly believed that she was going to meet a new guy because I am sure she doesn't have any friends in Germany or in Europe. Since the police said I cannot do anything, I just thought to make her life very difficult by not letting her bring the baby stroller. Of course, she did not agree, but I told the police that I brought this for the baby. She really wanted to go and seemed desperate, so she finally went out without the baby stroller. I was curious why she tried her best to bring the baby stroller. Then I found out that there were birth control pills under the covers, and not just one, but 3 packets. From that night, I did not hear from her for 3 weeks. She eventually came back like nothing happened. She always had ways to bring me back to her. I know that she cheated on me, but for some reason, I still had hopes that she will change and things will get better. 2 months went by and she told me she was pregnant. I already had doubts that maybe this is not mine, but what can I do? I am blinded by love and the idea of having a family. I had already lost contact with my family when I chose her, so she is the only family that I had. As there will be 2 kids now, she demanded to bring her mother again to Germany to help out. I was reluctant but eventually agreed. It took me a lot of money and time to bring her back here again. I obviously did not want her mother to come again, but I wanted to avoid conflict to have a peaceful life. So, her mother came for the second time. Remember, her mother doesn't speak English at all except the word sorry. If my wife wasn't around, her mother would use Google Translator to communicate with me. Since her mother was with us, my son was sleeping with her and my newly born daughter stayed with us. I noticed that my son started acting scared and strange whenever he was around my wife's mother. I started to think her mother might be doing something towards my son. Living with my wife and her mother was becoming more and more difficult. My wife would not prepare food for anyone but herself. She would ruin my stuff when I was at work, claiming it was an accident, even cutting up my clothes and destroying my appliances. She was also selling some of my expensive tools online without telling me. When I caught her doing that, I confronted her and she blamed me for not bringing enough money to the family. She would even go to charity offices and tell stories that fooled the lady there. She would tell her that I was not giving her food and locking the fridge, so the lady gave her €100. She kept threatening to divorce me, but would never go through with it. However, I finally come to my senses and moved out to another apartment. I tried to keep in contact with her just because of the kids. I still wanted to be a part of their life. But she used them as a weapon to manipulate me. She used them so I could buy her some stuff like a cell phone and a TV. She started to reveal her true self and tried making me jealous by telling me stories like she is interested in working as a freelancer and how she gave her number to a man that she just met on a bus. She would also tell me how she met different guys while I was working. She made me believe that she was fooled by an Italian guy who just used her, but seems like it's normal for her to meet foreign guys at the airport she was working at. I also found out later that the curlers I brought her the first time I met her in Indonesia were sold to her friends and she just kept the money herself. After hearing all this, I started searching her laptop and phones. I found many explicit photos from different hotel rooms with multiple foreign guys. I even found a video of her with some pilot. It slowly became clear that her story with her first boyfriend, the Italian guy, was a lie like everything else. This guy just met her online while he was planning to go back to Italy from Bali, where he was on vacation, and they met in Jakarta during his couple of days stay there. Anyway, skipping ahead. Her mother's visa was ending and she was thinking of ways on how she can keep her mother in Germany, knowing that I will not be a sponsor of any of them anymore. She came up with the idea that her mother should look for a boyfriend so he could sponsor her. Her mother agreed to it, but it was my wife who created a profile on the dating app. She was the one who was choosing the guys and messaging them. She finally found a pensioner that she thought was a perfect fit for her plan. After talking with the guy and explaining that she does not know English or German, he agreed to meeting her with my wife present so she could translate. From what I was told from my wife, it seemed like it was going to be a happy ending for her mother as she was getting along with the new guy. But I was totally wrong, and she called me because she wanted to kick her mother out of the apartment. I immediately went over because I was worried about my kids. When I arrived, she was physically hitting her mother, so I picked up the kids who were crying and tried to calm them down. She was so jealous of her mother receiving €200 and a new jacket from her boyfriend. She called the police and reported her mother for stealing €200 from her because her mother refused to give my wife the €200. I had to intervene because my name is on the documents that brought her mother to Germany, and I did not want even more problems in my life. I settled this with the police and arranged a hotel for her mother and to send her back to Indonesia as soon as I could. After her mother left, I saw Juliana just a few times when she was going out with her mother's now ex-boyfriend and the kids. It looked like she got rid of her mother so she could have this 76-year-old pensioner all to herself. As for me, I carried on with my life and went back into the dating scene, starting with online dating. However, my wife had different plans. Instead of letting me move on, she would try to lure me back and told me that she still loves me and she would like to fix our family. This was all happening while she was still active on dating apps, sleeping with other guys, and had a pensioner on the go. I began to get worried for my children because of the amount of guys my wife would be dating, so I reported her to the police. But again, they refused to intervene because she is an adult and she has her rights to do whatever she likes. When I found someone serious, the moment she learned about my new girl, she contacted her family and her friends, trying to destroy my reputation. I took a big step by finally filing for a divorce. I know it was a long time overdue, but better late than never, right? I was worried that the divorce process would be long because there are 2 children involved. However, I got lucky because she was lying constantly and the judge made a decision in one day. She was asked why she did not want a divorce, and my wife replied many reasons until she mentioned that she wanted to stay married to me so she could stay in Europe. Then the judge instantly decided to grant the divorce. She is still living in Germany today, abusing social benefits and probably scamming a lot of unsuspecting guys. She has a right to stay there until our kids become adults. She does not allow me to have any contact with my kids because she says they are scared of me, which is total BS. I even have documents from the courts that allow me to visit the kids every day. However, she never opens a door for me when I try to visit. All my social media and phone numbers are blocked by her, so it's really difficult trying to contact my kids. So, wrapping up, finally she got what her dream was, to stay in Europe, where she has unlimited access to foreign guys and no need to work because of government giving support. She got rid of me because I was only needed to get her to Germany, and now she has total freedom. Here in Germany, she has protection by the law. Even though I'm worried about my kids, police told me she has her rights and her needs. It was a very challenging 5 years for me, and it is still a continuous battle with her. But I hope some people can learn something from my story. Some people can get lucky by meeting their dream girl online, but some, just like me, could meet the nightmare of their lives online. So, be careful and stay alert.